Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Now, you may notice that the setting's a little different today. It's been a crazy week, so we're just filming from the car today. As you probably know, Benjamin Franklin was one of the founding fathers of the United States of America. He's well known as a statesman, but also he was pretty busy in his early life as a printer. And that is the bulk of the book. The first chunk of the book that he wrote all at once is largely about his life as a printer, both growing up in a Quaker community and then moving out to Pennsylvania to start his own printing business. The second part of the book was written a few years later, I believe in France, after he'd had some distance, and that one focuses more on his life and works after printing. So there are a couple key takeaways that I wanted to share with you from this book. The first is that Benjamin Franklin found a career that he enjoyed and used it over the course of his life to not only benefit himself but also others. Now, it wasn't perfect. He made a couple mistakes along the way. He took a trip across the sea to London while working for a particular individual who had convinced him that said individual had credit in London. But when Benjamin Franklin and his friend arrived in London, he discovered that there was no such credit, and thus he wound up staying there a couple of years just because he was stuck, finding work here and there to try and get by before he was eventually able to return to the States. When he did eventually return to the States, he became quite the well-known and well-regarded printer in Pennsylvania. He wanted to create a paper that talked about the news and about the facts, that wasn't largely about puffery, the way that a lot of newspapers in London had become in the years that he was writing. He believed that journalism should be removed of all these things and that should just articulate the facts. Kind of funny considering where we are currently with our newspapers and how often they're more geared towards entertainment. But that was the original goal, to create a factual information, a log, a way for people to keep in touch with what was going on. The second piece I want to take away from the book is leaving a legacy. And what that meant in Benjamin Franklin's life was not only improving the city for his own life and his family and friends, but making a way for others in the future. Benjamin Franklin set up the Benjamin Franklin Fund, which would fund later on prizes given to different public schools in Pennsylvania. He would also go on to organize the assembly of different pastors, different Christian communities, so Baptist and Anglican, Wesleyan, I believe, and Moravian were all brought together to create this assembly that later became the ground roots for the University of Pennsylvania, a well-known, well-regarded Ivy League in today's world. Largely because that started was because of Benjamin Franklin. He was also responsible for creating a special line of street lamps. Back in the day in London, they had these globe-like lamps, and he was interested in bringing that same sort of street lighting over to Pennsylvania. However, these globe-like lamps would only last a couple hours into the evening before they got dusty, and the whole town of London would wind up getting dark. So instead of this design, Benjamin Franklin decided to come up with a 4-panel design where the airflow would come up through the bottom and the smoke would blow out through the top. Not only did this keep the lights clear throughout the night, but it also enabled them to replace one single panel if something ran into it and broke it, instead of having to replace the whole globe. Moreover, he wound up getting the center street paved and convinced someone to sweep it up, and then walked around to different neighbors and businesses and convinced them that for a small fee they could help this individual out while that individual would keep the street clean from all the mud. Because up to all that time, the streets of Philadelphia were covered in mud regularly. Oftentimes the water would pile up. And through this diligence, not only in finances, but also in garnering support through the rest of the community, he made a way for clean streets, well-lit streets all through the night. Now, there's a lot more to learn about Benjamin Franklin in this book and in others, so I hope you get a chance to read it yourself. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next video.